Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to episode 17 of the Dying Sports YouTube page and podcast network. As always, we've got a great guest for you guys lined up today. We'll be sitting down with none other than Garry Gallimore, who is a former USport level basketball player and also had played professionally overseas in several different leagues before coming back to Ottawa and ultimately went on to found his own company. So he is now the CEO of Trench Life Apparel, which is a activewear, lifestyle, leisure wear brand, everything under the sun. And they've got some really great products. So we sort of dive into not only his journey through athletics, but also how he transitioned in a post-playing career into his current role, which is always really cool as well, too, to sort of see how athletes sort of make that jump and use some of the things that drove them through athletics to continue to make impacts in their lives in a business setting. So definitely some transferable skills there, and we try and unpack that a little bit. So hope you guys enjoy this episode. Without further ado, let's get to it. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Dying Sports YouTube page and podcast network. Joining me today is CEO of Trench Life Apparel, Garry Gallimore. How are you doing today, sir?
Not bad, man. Doing very well, actually. I just
Yeah.
want to say thanks for having me today. It's a pleasure for sure.
Yeah, well, hey, we appreciate you coming on. We know you've got lots of things on the go, so for you carving out some time, we really appreciate it.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so I mean, we growing up, was it always basketball for you at first, or were you a multi-sport athlete and then you sort of focused into basketball, or how did your journey in athletics get started?
Well, it wasn't about basketball. So I'm from Jamaica originally. So growing up in Jamaica, my sport of choice was actually cricket, track and field, and soccer. I didn't find out about basketball until I came to Canada in '93, and then I messed around with it for a little bit, but got serious in grade 8 when a bunch of friends of mine went to try out for a club team, Nepean Bobcats at the time. And I went along for tryouts, made the team, and just kind of been building a basketball resume since then. This was '97, '98.
Okay, all right. So you definitely had that sort of multi-sport approach then growing up, right?
A little, yeah, a little bit,
Yeah.
but that's not the case now. I did some track and field also in high school, but basketball has been the thing that I've put my time and effort in. So I that's the one thing I got the most out of. The rest kind of just fell to the wayside as I got further with basketball.
Yeah, yeah. Do you find, as you sort of progress through basketball, that any of those other sports that you had any transferable skills, like the hand-eye coordination from cricket or anything like that?
Well, definitely. I think, especially when you're younger and you train your body and your muscles to do certain things, there's certain muscle memories that your body will always carry through with you. Also, the track and field portion of it, basketball is a lot of running if you play competitively, especially. So the track and field training, obviously running is something I did in my off season, whether it be distance running or just short sprints and different agility drills to make sure that my speed and my agility was on point for when I stepped on the court. So I'd say track and field is probably the most consistent thing that I've kept with me sport-wise, other than basketball.
Yeah, for sure. And, looking back on it, you had a very successful youth sports and then a pro career in basketball. Your brother just got drafted into the NFL. So it's probably fair to say that, that competitive drive runs in the family.
Yeah.
Do you think that, that was something that you guys were just born with, or was it something that maybe your parents sort of instilled on it? Was it nature, nurture, a little of both?
I'd say it's definitely a little bit of both. Athleticism, I would say my brothers and I are naturally pretty athletic, but based on the levels we've gotten to, it definitely had to take some work to fine tune certain things, to perfect certain things, and improve upon what we had naturally. So I think it's a bit of both. And also our parents are hardworking people, so just their work ethic, we took that and put it behind anything that we chose to do, and that's what got us the results that we got in the end.
Yeah, for sure. And, parents play such a key role in every athlete's development and every kid's development, right? Was there maybe one or two sort of messages that, whether it was mom or dad or grandparents or whoever, sort of, passed on to you that still resonate and you still think about today?
There's a few. Obviously, my parents were very big on, obviously, education. I think every parent dreams and hopes for their kids is probably education before sports. But just the idea of committing to doing good work to get good results was something that my parents always instilled in us. And that's my mother, especially. Like when we came to Canada, she was very adamant about, basketball, sports is cool, but, without an education, you're not going to be able to maximize whatever you want to do with basketball. So that's something we took seriously. My brother took it seriously with football as well. My older brother played basketball, but he's more of a book numbers guy. So he kind of stuck to the education part of it full tilt. And also my father always, there's this quote that he always says, even to this day, as long as you have life, you have hope, which means, as long as you're breathing, you can always find ways to accomplish things you want to accomplish as long as you have the drive and the will to do it. So those are things that I always hear in the back of my head whenever I'm going through life or making plans to do anything.
Yeah, for sure. And really sound advice, right? And, you hit on something there too, with education being such a huge part, especially, in your formative years there, it's student athlete, right? They're not mutually exclusive. Right. Was there ever, a point that stands out for you where, you started really realizing that playing basketball at the post-secondary level was a realistic option?
Yes, it would definitely be, I want to say maybe grade 11, maybe after my grade 10th year, because I went to Woodruff High School, and there I met a lady who was coaching. Her name is Adrienne Cadet, she's a teacher there. She's an educator first. So the big thing with her was like, as much as she loved coaching basketball, and she always used it as an opportunity to get kids to give their best in the classroom. So one, she always said that, if you can't be a good student, you can't be a good basketball player, which ultimately meant that if you're not showing up to class and doing the work that's required, there's absolutely no way she could trust you to do what she needs to do on the basketball court. So in order to play on her teams, you had to be a decent student at least. So yeah, so those things help for sure. And
Yeah, right on. And you were successful in that journey, as far as you
right.
ended up getting recruited, going out east to St. FX there. Was there any one or two things that really sold you on packing up and moving to the East Coast there for school? What was it? The culture? Was it the atmosphere? Was it the team? Was it the coach? A little of everything?
Most likely a little bit of everything, but for me personally, I like to go different places and experience different things, meet different people, that kind of thing. So even though, we have two great universities in Ottawa, obviously, my big thing was I wanted to go somewhere else. I wanted to go away. And believe it or not, the opportunity didn't really present itself until maybe my last semester of high school, because that's when Coach K kind of hopped on board. He was very good in the recruiting process. He came, he called me, and then immediately he was sitting in my living room, and then, he was just calling it everywhere I went, whether it was to a camp or anything, Coach K was there. So, that created an opportunity for me. And then going on my school visit to St. FX, there's a guy there that I played a club ball with, Dion Williams, who was also instrumental in the recruiting process. And just going there and seeing what they did. And obviously the history at the time behind the program was also a big factor for me. So going there and just the whole East Coast vibe was kind of like very welcoming to me. So that was in the end, it was a no-brainer. Being different places. So that was probably my main motivation.
Right on. And you mentioned, and it was something that actually Merrick, when we interviewed him for this podcast, he mentioned as well too, that once you were in sort of Coach K's sights, he was like a dog with a bone. Like you said, he was everywhere. He was at every practice, phoning you all the time and all that. How important was it to have, feel valued by the head coach? It's not just one of his assistants or, a grad assistant or something like that reaching out. Right. It's the actual head coach of a team making this effort.
It was very important. And it was very important because not only was he, in a sense, recruiting me, he was also recruiting my parents. So my parents were immediately sold on him because he came directly to them, he spoke to them, and he always included them in the process. So that was big. And he was, he did really make me feel valued. He didn't sell me a bunch of fibs or anything like that. It was very genuine. He said, when he sat with my parents and I, he said, whatever you want at St. FX, you can earn it. I'm not going to guarantee you a starting position. I'm not going to guarantee you X amount of minutes. But based on my resume at that point, I think he kind of knew that, I wasn't just going to show up and expect handouts. I was definitely going to show up and earn everything that I deserve. So that was it. And he was very instrumental. And I really appreciate the fact that he kept my family involved the whole step of the way. So I think initially my parents were sold before I was. So that kind of worked out in his favor as well, because not only was he recruiting me, now he had my parents recruiting me as well to go there. So done deal.
Yeah. It's a whole lot easier when you got mom in your corner sort of nudging you out that way too.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what it was. My dad was, he knew what it was. He was kind of, whatever I chose to do, he was going to support it. But my mother was really literally, what about Coach K? Oh, Coach K's on the phone. Did you talk to Coach K? St. FX, that's where you should go. And then eventually that's my mom's always been right in my life. As much as I've denied it a lot of times or tried to deny it, she just had this very motherly intuition that things are going to go this way, and then she'd encourage it that way. But she just always seemed to be right. And a lot of the times I kind of try to butt my head against it, but in the end, her truth always prevailed.
Yeah, mother knows best. Right? So I mean, you had a remarkable career at St. FX there. You won some individual awards, you accomplished a lot of great things as a team there, and then you transitioned that into a professional career overseas as well too. What was that process sort of like, getting ready to go overseas and going to it's one thing to go from Ottawa to the East Coast, it's another thing to go from East Coast to Europe, right? What was that like?
It was definitely I would say it was a bit intense, but what worked out in my favor, I had international experience leading up to that opportunity. I was fortunate enough from 2002 to 2007 to be a part of Canada's junior national team, to young men's team, to the FISU Games team. So I had that experience in terms of playing against international competition, in terms of competing in different countries throughout the world. So that kind of helped in a bit. But in terms of an extended stay in one place and competing at such a level, it was very challenging at times. My first contract I signed was for a club in the first division in Belgium. Obviously, there was a bit of a language barrier. It's one of those things you regret when you didn't pay attention in French class, but now you're dealing with people who primarily speak French, and now you're kind of asking them to speak English, and their English is just as good as your French, so it's kind of tricky at that point. And also just the competition was high level competition. And, it exposed a lot of my weaknesses that I probably should have improved on when I had the chance to improve on it in university. And, but knowing what I know after the fact, obviously I know what to change. But in the moment when I was in university, and having the success I was having, you feel like you're pretty accomplished, and that success is going to carry over to the next level, which is not always the case. But in what worked out for me is my ability to adapt and learn quickly, and also retain information that's given to me from coaches and also from players that I was playing with in the games as well.
Yeah, for sure. And for those that are listening right now who might not be as familiar with some of the European leagues there, what would you say is the biggest difference between sort of the style of play in North America versus what you see over in Europe there, whether it's the Belgian leagues or the Spanish leagues or anything like that?
So I mean, the biggest difference is probably the half-court basketball, and I think now North American players, especially in USport, you see now the top teams are focusing primarily on that half-court sets, especially getting their guards to play out of the pick and roll and learning to read and make plays from the pick and roll. I think that's the biggest difference. Also, not to take anything away from North American players, I think European players focus more on the smaller things as opposed to, like passing, shooting, dribbling, making plays, making reads. Everything is not an high-flying, spectacular play as it is in North America, and that's kind of how the media sensationalizes sports in especially basketball. It's always the high-flying finishes, the dunks, the crazy moves, the crossovers, while European players is really, you could watch a EuroLeague top 10 and most of it will be a guy coming off a pick and roll and, you know, breaking a guy down and kicking it to an open shooter who's automatic. Rarely will you see like more than a few dunks in the top 10, where in North America, like most of your top 10 plays, there'll probably be at least 8 dunks. So I think the biggest difference is the athleticism that North America is over sensationalized, and then Europeans, they're more focused on the half court cerebral part of the game, where it's, you know, you're playing the game from here and not just your physical.
Yeah, yeah, and it's such a good point, right? You turn on whatever TSN or Sportsnet or whatever in the morning, like you say, it's the dunks, it's the, you know, crossing guys over. Rarely do you see that perfect thread the needle pass for a wide open layup or kick it into the corner, right? But I mean, that's the stuff that wins games at the next level,
Exactly.
right? So, you know, for those, you know, kids that are coming up and that's all they want to do. Yes, I'm like, what would you rather have? Would you rather have, you know, insane dunking ability or unlimited range? Like 9 out of 10 of them want to throw down a windmill dunk, right?
Yeah.
Advice would you be giving them as far as what they should realistically be focusing on rather than just when can I cram it? When can I cram it?
Yeah, I think well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being able to do that, but if that's all you're bringing to the table, rarely or if ever will you have an opportunity to make more than one of those a game, maybe even once every couple of games. So work on the things that it's going to maximize your production on the basketball court. A dunk is great, but I've never seen anybody score 20 points off just dunks. I've never seen a team win a game where everybody's just dunking the basketball. Work on the things that allow you to be successful and allow your team to be successful as well. There's so many different aspects of basketball. There's rebounding, you know, there's defense. Learning to shoot the basketball efficiently is also key, especially in this age and how the game is played. If you can't shoot the basketball or force people to guard you outside the paint, again, you're not going to be helping your teammates, freeing somebody up. Maybe there's a guy on your team who could dunk as well. But if all you bring to the table as well is a windmill dunk, just overemphasizing that point, then it's going to be impossible for you to even get that because, again, most defenses are just going to pack the paint and force you to do something that you haven't been good at doing consistently. And then that throws everything off. So I think work on things that make you more efficient, that makes other people around you better, and just being completely versatile, being able to play on both sides of the ball. That increases your minutes, that increases your potential to be productive. So there's just so many things that people overlook, but don't shy away from what you bring to the table naturally, but it's important to build on those and add more to your repertoire so that it makes you more competitive, more versatile, and more efficient.
Yeah, yeah. No one's ever scored 20 points off just dunks in a game there, but I think Zion Williamson might be trying to become the first.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the point though. Like every now and then there is a freak athlete like that. But again, based on where his career is headed, I don't think the NBA players are just going to sit back and let this guy just come and have a career based off just dunks. Eventually, he's going to have to evolve.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, looking back on it, you know, and whether it was in the pros, whether it was at USport, whether it was even just, you know, high school or youth ball, you know, do one or two moments still stand out to you as like, oh man, that was one of my favorite moments ever on a basketball court there?
I would say maybe my rookie season at St. FX. That would be a big one for me because I think that year St. FX wasn't expected to do much. They had graduated a lot of their players at this point. The guys that had won the back-to-back championship had left at this point. We had a underrated recruitment class. I think the only person that really had any kind of clout per se behind them was me because I played at that point 2 years with the junior national team, and I was regarded as a pretty good recruit coming out of high school. But there was a few guys. There's a guy from Ottawa named Jonathan Bell who was OCA, I think college level All-Canadian at Algonquin. He ended up transferring that year to St. FX. There's another guy from BC named Zach Russell who was very tough, very competitive. And then we had returned some guys from injury who have sat out, a few years before. So our recruiting class was pretty solid. And the thing was, the guys that Coach K brought in that year, we immediately gelled together. So it was really a brotherhood. It was really a family, and we really played for each other. So that was a lot of fun, and that made the year very special. And I think my second point that really stood out was in 2005 in the World Championships in Argentina, when we beat the U.S. team in overtime. A team that had Rajon Rondo, they had Rudy Gay on the team, they had Glenn Baby, big baby Glenn Davis, JJ Redick, and just a bunch of guys that ended up going to the NBA. And we beat them because, ultimately they didn't take us seriously. We got them in overtime, and we ended up winning a bronze in that tournament. So that was a big moment. I think that's one of those moments you'll carry with you for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime, doesn't matter what sport it is, whether it's basketball, hockey, football, whatever. Anytime it's Canada, US there, it's always a little bit added stakes there, right?
Exactly. So yeah, and I mean, these are guys that we've played before in these tournaments, and they've always gotten the best of us. But this time, it was just, third time is a charm, as they say. It was just not going to happen this time. We've played them enough to know what they're going to do, and we just knew that we had a little bit more. And the fear was completely out the door at that point. Everybody just dug in and just performed the best they could. And also a guy named Levon Kendall had a monster game. I believe he had 40 points that game. And at the time he was at Pittsburgh University. So that was major for us. And, it was just one of those things that doesn't matter if it was documented or if you have pictures to prove it, you're just always going to feel that moment no matter where you are in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And, so transitioning now to sort of post-playing career, I mean, you're rocking it right now. You've got the Trench Life hat on, the Trench Life shirt, right? So you're the CEO and founder of Trench Life Apparel, right? And it's
right.
a lifestyle and athletic brand. And,
right.
was this something that you had always had in the back of your head of, one day I want to start this, or was it sort of later in life that you started thinking more about starting your own business?
It was definitely something I had in my heart and in my mind, but way back when it was, I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know who to contact in terms of manufacturing. I didn't know, obviously I didn't have a business plan at the time. I didn't know the process. And then, what was it? I played on a team, Halifax Rainman, back in 2010. And one of the players was actually one of the guys that his company was making our uniforms and our practice. They made the uniforms for the whole league. And he also made our practice stuff. And he now runs a company called Moneyball Sports from Lansing, Michigan. So being able to have that, that insight on and watching him do what he does, and to the point that he's gotten it to now, it was something that kind of inspired me on the direction to go. I've asked him a few questions. He's given me a little bit of insight, but for the most part, I really had to start doing my own research and knowing what direction I wanted to go and which market would be more suitable. Because, even though it's apparel, there's still tons of markets for apparel. It's just a matter of finding the lane that works best for you. So that's kind of where we are, and that's where I'm at right now. And yeah, the idea initially, where it really took off for me was I was playing in Romania, and this is where the name kind of came to me. I knew what I wanted to do, but again, I didn't have a name, I didn't have a logo, and anything of the sort. I was playing in Romania my first season there in 2011, 2012, and Romania as compared to Belgium is like, it's like, I mean, no disrespect to anybody. It's completely different. I'm not gonna say it. It's two different places. The lifestyles are two different experiences. So I mean, for me, what I was doing was every time I had an experience or I needed something to give me a little extra push, I'd write down a little quote, and then I would hashtag it Trench Life, and that was kind of what I did for the whole season. And because Romania was challenging, the lifestyle was challenging. So every time I overcame an obstacle, it would be like that hashtag Trench Life. So after the season, I remember just sitting in my room, and then it just came to me, and I was just like, what can I really do with this Trench Life stuff? And then it was like, there you go, why not try to, put it in some apparel and see the outcome of that? So initially I started with some basketball shorts. It's kind of like a no-brainer because I was playing basketball at the time and everybody loves basketball shorts. I started that, I had some made, and I came home and I kind of just sold it out of out of the trunk of my mother's car and out of her house, and a lot of people, just to kind of get a feel on how people would react to it. And then step by step, we slowly kind of added more pieces. And based on the feedback that we were getting from people that were actually buying this stuff, I kind of decided to go in the direction of making it performance apparel. And then now we're starting to add more lifestyle stuff to it, because it makes sense to do lifestyle with performance, because that's ultimately it. You want pieces that are versatile, that you can work out at the gym, or you can just wear around town, leisurely. So that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, yeah, and good for you, because starting a business is Herculean task, no matter what your background is there, right? But sort of making that transition from athletics into the business world there, were there any major obstacles that you really had to learn on the fly, or what was the most difficult part of getting from point A to where you are now?
I think the most difficult thing, and it's still not necessarily an issue, it's still something that I say we also, because I have both my brothers involved, Neville, and my older brother Garry, and a good friend of mine, Sean Peter, who are now involved in, which kind of makes it easier to distribute the tasks a little bit better. Now it's not just me doing everything, which kind of slowed things down initially. But the biggest and the most challenging part I find is manufacturing and getting the quality and pieces that you want consistently. So we're always shopping around with manufacturers, and obviously, you have to get samples, which is something I recommend to people who are pursuing anything apparel wise. You have to get samples, which again becomes very costly, because the first batch may not be what you want, but it may have potential. So then you would go back and try to get it as refined as possible until you get that perfect piece. Because the one thing we said as a company, we didn't want to just put stuff out, slap a logo on stuff and put it out there and then have customers have bad experiences with it. So when we put it out there, it's because we feel like the quality is good enough and it's going to help people achieve what they desire to achieve while wearing our stuff. So that's the biggest thing. And that's just it. It's just a continuous process. Just continue learning trends as well, and learning how to market to people. That's also very challenging, because even though I said, we take time in making sure our quality is good, the other part of it is convincing, somebody on the street or somebody, across the world that, our stuff is equal to what they already know, which is tough, because there's a lot of big players in the game. You have some of the top brands in the world doing performance and lifestyle. So we're not competing with them, because we already know that they've already established themselves. But the idea is we want their customers to also, give us a try. So we have to make sure that, our story does reach and impact people on many different platforms. So that's also very challenging.
Yeah. And, it's obvious that, we talked about that competitive desire and all of that a little bit earlier, but it's even obvious now for those who have seen, whether it's your Instagram page or anything like that, that competition is still a huge part of your lifestyle, whether it's, your workout challenges or these crazy fitness goals you're throwing out there to the world. What sort of role do you see competition playing in Trench Life sort of moving forward?
I mean, life is competitive, so Trench Life has to be competitive as well. I mean, especially, for example, the challenge that I put out there is also to encourage people to compete, whether it's against themselves, whether it's against somebody else. Obviously there's rules of competition, there's fair play, there's sportsmanship. Those are things that we stand behind. Competition doesn't necessarily means you have to beat down or bully somebody else, but it's just using your best to bring the best out of somebody else, and so you can continue giving your best. That's kind of how I see competition is somebody giving them best, which is encouraging you to give your best as well, and then in the end you kind of evaluate the outcome based on how you evaluate the outcome. So yeah, competition is definitely going to be a part of it, and we just encourage people to always, whatever you did today, if you could do a little more tomorrow, whatever your goals are, don't stop until you accomplish them. There's many ways to accomplish goals. Just, find ways to get it done. And Trench Life ultimately, relies on work, and we encourage people to, to value their work in whatever they choose to do, because one of our things is that, in valuing your work, you value yourself. It's basically exactly what it is. When you go to work, you're paid based on the quality of work you're capable of doing. When you hand in a resume, you're basically telling whoever is hiring that, I'm the quality of work I'm doing or capable of doing is the reason why you should hire me. So that's ultimately what Trench Life is value your work, is valuing yourself. So competition, good competition, fair play, and sportsmanship is what we stand behind. And we encourage people to never really settle for less than they know they can do. And don't get discouraged or quit on yourself or beat yourself down if you don't achieve what you want to achieve right away. Sometimes it is a long process, and if you're committed to go the distance, you will definitely get the results you want.
Yeah. Where do you get the inspiration from when you're trying to put together, whether it's a new hat or a new shirt or new whole spring collection or whatever? Where do you sort of get your ideas from?
Inspiration, it comes from everywhere, really. I mean, I have to pay attention with what's going on especially with the companies, because a lot of the bigger companies, they kind of set the trends on what's going to be happening seasonally. And, we want to make sure that we see what they're doing, in a sense, to not end up duplicating it, but drawing inspiration in the sense that we see what they're doing and then trying to be as innovative as possible to now develop something that could also be competitive or stand out or impactful to somebody else within our own lane, so to speak. So, and also I ask questions. I speak to people who do purchase our stuff, or people who in general who are into lifestyle clothing or fit or performance clothing. What would you like? And also my wife is always in my ear. She has some great ideas. She has a lot of great ideas, so she kind of, I'm starting to listen to her more, and it's incredible, man. Sorry to, again, I said my mother's always had these intuitions, and they always turned out to be true. And again, now my wife kind of plays the same role in my life. And the big thing for me is really to listen, and that's another thing I'm really improving on is my listening skills. So my wife she also always has ideas, and also my brother Neville, based on where he is now, he kind of gives me insight, because he kind of has his foot in the door with, in terms of at the next level, so to speak. So in terms of what people at that level desire in performance and in lifestyle, I kind of get an inside scoop on him, and he kind of, whenever we're going to do something or put something together, we kind of use him as a consultant. What do you think about this? What are guys saying around you? What are they into? What are they wearing? And then go from there. So in the future, that's basically what it is. I mean, he's going to play. That's kind of the role he has with us, is giving us ideas on how to kind of tap into that market that all those big companies are already a part of. So hopefully it does, yield what we desire it to. But if not, we're just going to keep building on what we have, and then continue to grow with the people that are growing with us until eventually, hopefully, it'll be as special to somebody else as it is to us.
Yeah, and go figure, right? It's always the women in your life that sort of keep you on track and on the straight and narrow, and yeah.
Shout outs to all the ladies, man. Yeah, they definitely have, like, they're very insightful and very creative. A while to just understand, like, even though I started this Trench Life thing, it's definitely good to work with other people, listen to other people's advice, and also being able to collaborate and take instruction from other people, and then ultimately grow with them. Because if I want to reach the diversity of people that I want to reach, then I have to have those kind of people around me in order to help me, see from different perspectives. Because initially, I only have my perspective, and for the longest time, I thought that my perspective was the perspective. But as you grow and you learn that it's not just about you. There's a whole world of people around you, and it makes sense to interact and grow with them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, you've already mentioned a couple times here, both your brothers and your family play a huge role in Trench Life and all of that. So I've got to ask, out of your siblings, though, who's got the best fashion sense?
You know what, man? I'm pretty, well, my older brother, well, I don't share the same fashion sense that they do. I have a lot of, withdrawal or drawbacks when I see them put on certain things because, it's not for me, but it works for them. But I would say it's Neville because he's very brave. Neville is very brave, and he's from this now generation where, they wear the clothing a certain cut. He's very versatile with his wardrobe. He could really put on one of those cowboy hats that, those future hats and some jeans, and, and it'll be, and everybody will be like, oh, Neville, you're so fashionable. Or he could just throw on some sweats and a bucket hat or whatever. So he's very in tune with fashion now. Me, I kind of just stick to what I know. And I think my older brother, he's more into like, the suits and that kind of stuff. So, they Neville has the edge, but I think they're both pretty fashionable.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. Neville's now got video evidence of you going on record saying that he's got some fashion sense there.
Yeah, yeah. And mind you, I don't, even though I think he does, I don't always tell him. I'm more likely to be like, yo, what are you wearing? But it's what's in, my days are done with the oversized jeans and the oversized t-shirts. So, those days are done. So it's a new era is ushered in, and he's leading the charge with that for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So, but before we let you go, we always like having tangible takeaways from our interviews here. So, if you could give one piece of advice to, whether it's an athlete making that transition post-playing career or just someone who's looking to start their own business, what would it be?
I've heard this time and time again, and it can't be any truer. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, but don't let your mistakes or your failures stop your progress. Every time you stumble, every time you feel like you've done something or you should have taken another route, just take that time, take a minute to relax, evaluate the situation. Failure should never be the end of it. There's always room to grow, and no matter how many times it happens, if you're passionate and serious about something, you'll always find a way to be successful. But understand that you're going to have to commit to a lot of things. You're going to have to be disciplined. You're going to have to persevere and overcome a lot. But as long as you know what your end goal is and you're willing to work towards it, despise what happens along the way, then that'll be very beneficial for you in the end.
Nice. Where can people find more information about Trench Life or check out any of your products or anything like that?
We have a website. You can check us out at www.trenchlifeapparel. We have a website. That's where most people get our stuff. Get it there. We ship it out to you. Also, we have an Instagram at Trench Life on Instagram. You can find us on Twitter at Trench Life Sport, as well on Facebook at Trench Life Apparel. And then I have my own Instagram that I also use to push my stuff, which is at Garry Gallimore. I'm on Facebook under the same thing, and then on Twitter as well. So we're on about quite a few social media platforms, and mostly, yeah, just go from there. And hopefully, we'll have enough people stuff in time that we could have more people just be walking billboards that people could communicate with and also learn how to find us.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely for those that are listening right now, check them out. They've got some great gear on there. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. We really appreciate all the knowledge and explaining your journey and how you've gotten to where you are in life. And hope you and the family stay well during COVID here.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much, man. Thank you for this opportunity. I always like a good chance and to share my story in hopes that somebody would hear it and be inspired by it. And just kind of like an opportunity to relive my glory days. I think there's a lot of stories that I have that I don't really get to share. So any chances I get to do that, I really like that. So thank you very much. And I really appreciate what you're doing. Obviously, best of luck to you. And hopefully things will open up soon enough so that, everybody could get back to work in the sports world.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to the day where we're actually on a basketball court, not just talking about when the NBA is going to restart there. So.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you take care. And that's a wrap for another episode of the Dying Sports YouTube page and podcast network. Huge thank you, as always, goes out to our guest today, Garry Gallimore, for sitting down and walking us through his journey, not only in basketball, but founding his company and all the progress he's made since there. It's always great to get some tips and tricks and insights into how athletes do make that transition in their post-playing careers there. For those that are listening, thanks as always for tuning in. Make sure you guys check out some of our social media pages that we've got going on as well. We'd love to connect with you guys on there. We've also got a monthly contest going on right now, so be sure to hop over to our Instagram page or Facebook or Twitter and get the details on that and how you can enter, because we'd love to be able to continue to grow this community and keep going forward with bringing you guys great content week in, week out. Got another great guest lined up for you later this week, and then stay tuned for some more exciting announcements. Till then, have a great day. Take care.